Hi, I'm Carrie. I'm here with Heart to Heart podcast, and I have Erin here. And met Erin recently on Instagram. We connected, and she's been such a wonderful person to follow. My husband is now following her as well and listening to all of her podcasts on money management and the 5G of money. And Erin, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thanks for having me. I love talking and just it's like two friends over tea or coffee or seltzer water, how you want
Yes.
to say it. So the short version is finance is my background, financial planning is my background.
Mhm.
Helped run my family's construction business for 10 plus years
Ooh,
and got, I love it. It gave me so much expertise or just so many valuable skills. And also I got to a point where I was like, I want to travel, and buying this business and staying in Texas is not going to allow me to travel.
mhm.
So I got up the courage over years to quit and to start coaching, and I got into coaching and started coaching people. And then what I realized is I really wanted some time off. Like, I had never taken any time off, like to the point of scheduling my only child's birth around payroll, which is
Wow.
crazy that I say that
Wow.
now. Um, but I did, because I was the only one that I thought that, my dad could have done it, but it was almost, that whole stories that we tell ourselves, right? Like nobody else can
Wow.
do it, all that kind of stuff. And so I took some time off. So I'm coming back off of the heels of taking the last couple of years off
Mhm.
and traveling and spending time with family, and now getting back into coaching and helping entrepreneurs change their relationship with money.
Amazing. I love it. And I can't even imagine the energy of scheduling your birth around a certain timeline. Ooh, that
It was intense, like you think about, like, I really talk about self-compassion and love for ourselves. And
yeah.
Erin back then was just doing the best that she could. She thought that
Mhm.
was the only
Yeah.
solution.
Yep.
And she was just trying to make it easier on herself, that she could have 6 days of leeway to not sit in a chair before,
Oh my
so
god.
looking back,
Yeah.
and yeah, and the stress that I put myself under. Yeah,
Yeah.
so much
Wow.
love to the younger part of me.
Yes. Yep. Yep. You got to give her some love and some healing.
Yeah.
So I have been listening in and tuning in and really enjoying your podcast and your Instagram. And it's just been kind of a healing for myself as well.
Mm,
You and I were talking about the guilt of spending as a mom. And the other day, I think it was yesterday, I sent in an order for some clothing that I needed for myself. And I tried to just picture the money going toward the vendor that I was purchasing from, and I also
mhm,
tried to just feel myself release that guilt because spending on
mm,
myself is definitely something that I don't do, and I just
mm,
feel this heaviness in my stomach from it.
mm,
So
mm.
it's been kind of interesting. So what would you say to moms and dads in this same kind of feeling?
First of all, you're not alone. There's a lot of people that feel guilt. And I think, with your podcast and just talking more vulnerably about, our relationship with money, like
Yeah.
it, a lot of us feel that way, right? And also, in order to kind of transcend that, like we do have to feel it, right? Like I think for a lot of us, we're
Mhm.
like, oh, I shouldn't feel this way, or oh,
Yep.
and we suppress it. But like you're saying, like, okay, before I push this send button or this purchase button, like I'm going to feel this wave of guilt wash over me, right? It's
Mhm.
easier said than done. It is a practice, it is a skill, but it
Yep.
is one of those things of like releasing, because I think, in the self development world, we talk a lot about like, oh, well, like higher vibrations and think positively, but we can't think positively when we have a lot of suppressed and repressed emotions within us. And so
Yeah.
it's like feeling that what needs to be felt. Like, why do you feel the guilt? And what I've realized is a lot of times it comes back to like, I don't feel worthy, or I don't feel
Mm.
deserving, right? Like that's a lot of what I've had to work through, of like, no, I am deserving of having nice clothes that fit my body and that feel good.
Yeah.
And I think it's also a lot of conditioning, right? Like mom guilt. I don't know
Uh,
how many dads feel this way, but like mom guilt is a social construct. Like
mhm.
why are we feeling guilt for asking for what we want, for spending time by ourselves, for, it's this almost this award that like who has been the guiltiest and struggled the most award, like
Yes, yes.
versus
Jeez.
ver- versus no, I love my kids and I love my time by myself. And
Mhm.
by honoring and, like your children get to see that mom buys herself clothes, and then your daughter and son will replicate that for themselves, right? Like we
Mhm.
are being the example for our children, right? So,
Yeah.
so I think it's, is first and foremost is like the awareness, like even noticing that you have guilt, right? Like celebrating that and then also
Mhm.
feeling it. And then also then at that point, then by, passing through there and being like, okay, now what do I want to feel when I purchase things for myself?
Yeah. That's wonderful. It makes so much sense, and it did bring me some light to the heaviness that I did feel, and I agree with you. It's a process. It's not something that happens overnight. We have a lot of conditioning. I, as a younger child, was raised by a single mom, so
Yeah.
there was that piece of the puzzle of
Yeah.
I remember my mom saying a lot, "We can't afford it right now," and I started to say that to my kids recently, like, "Okay, we have way too many toys in our basement. So I'm going to tell them we can't afford it when really we can. And what are some other versions of what I can tell my kids and tell myself during those moments?"
Yeah, I think one of the things is tuning in. When you say you can't afford it, like really getting clear and feeling, what does that feel like in your body? And for me, can't afford is like this contraction, like your
Hmm.
mom, right? Like I think
Yeah.
our generation, right? Like our parents told us they can't afford it.
Yeah.
We can afford it, but we're choosing not to purchase it at this moment, right? Like it's not maybe in alignment with our values, or we have, mom and dad feel like we've got plenty of toys in this moment. We want to choose to use our money in different ways and what we value. But like I have found that that word of choice, right? Like you could buy more toys if you wanted to. You could not pay the, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you could not pay lots of bills, or you could not pay to savings, or there's so many different ways that we could use our money. And so instead of saying I can't afford it, saying it's not,
Hmm.
purchasing that in this moment isn't in alignment with what mom and dad are using our funds for, or how. And the other thing too, I think, I mean, depending on what age the kids are, but like
Hmm.
empowering our children, like how do you want to, like that's not in alignment, like what I've started doing with our daughter.
Hmm.
She's 12, like that's not in alignment with what dad and I value spending our money on. But how would you like to generate money to go buy it
Yeah.
yourself?
Hmm.
And we are the parents, are the ones that put all the stories on it. Like when I say that to my kids, she just thinks of all of the ideas to just go generate money,
Wow. Wow.
and so it's fun for her. She's like, oh,
Great.
I can do this and I can do this and I can do this. And so I think a lot of times we think, at least I did for sure, I thought I had to be the only person that provided for my child because
Hmm.
I was the parent, versus what do I want to give and purchase, and what's in alignment with our values and what's not, and what isn't, then how else can they receive that? So we aren't like the only ones that feels like that felt heavy to me, of feeling like I was the
Yeah.
only one that was like, I have to, provide all the things that she wants kind of thing.
I love that. I love empowering them and also giving them that idea of you are in charge of your own money. Like you can
Yeah.
bring it in yourself. You can find these alternatives, and that's really cool. I'm going to think about that for my 9-year-old because I think he could definitely come up with his own versions of things. So I love that. It's a huge piece of it. We also in our family we call it wanty. Um I'm feeling wanty. And recently, my daughter and I were in a store, and she started to kind of sometimes we'll take a picture if we don't want to buy something right then. So I'm like, we'll take a picture. We can put it on your birthday list. We're not going to get it right now. We don't need
Yeah.
this right now. And it's nice because they can release that energy. And it's been helpful for us. And then my daughter the other day, I've said, are you feeling wanty? You're getting kind of wanty. But the other day, she just had this self awareness of like, Mom, I need to leave the store now. I'm feeling wanty. And my mom was like, oh my gosh, that was really cool. I love how she did that herself. That was really
I
fun.
think I think that's great. Like I always say, like we can learn to build an anticipation muscle, right? Like
Mm,
anticipation is an amazing feeling to have. Like if you think about something that we want or our children want, right? Coming from that place of like, oh, what is it gonna like? how am I going to get to
Right.
enjoy it? And like, so she gets to go to the store and she gets to imagine it and she gets to like, oh, for her birthday,
Mhm.
and she gets to envision and visualize. Like, I think even adults, like we're such in a instant gratification world we live
Mm.
in. Like, I
Yep.
want it now. Like Amazon.
Yep.
I mean, my husband was saying it the other day. He's like, what, when did we live before Amazon? It's just
Yeah.
literally a click, right? And it shows up at your
Mhm.
door. And so really developing that muscle of, do I want it? And you and I didn't talk before about this, but like with human design and what I've learned with human design
Mhm.
of like half of us are what's called like how we make decisions are we need to ride our emotional wave. Like we are not fast decision makers. So
Mhm.
half of the population actually needs to kind of sit with that decision for a bit,
Interesting.
and so really like in that moment we think we want it, but what actually are we want, like there's a feeling that we want from that thing,
Mhm.
that versus sometimes it could just be the thing that we want, but sometimes a lot of times it's like a feeling that we're wanting.
Hmm.
And so like putting the pause on like, okay, do I still want it in a week from now? And the answer might be yes, right? And then we go back to the store and we get it. And sometimes it's like, it was just kind of in the heat of the moment,
Yeah.
I saw
Yeah.
it, I thought I wanted it, but not really that stoked about it anymore.
Yes. I love that. It's been a healthy wave of trying to learn that for our kids. And my 5-year-old, I was very excited when she used it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been good. So, there is a piece of my puzzle that I love to do with the crunchy mama, and I kind of make jokes about just being perfect and this perfect person, this perfect version that we try to live up to as crunchy mamas or mindful mamas. And part of it is the healthy eating and those pieces of the puzzle that
Mhm.
come into play, but we're a, gluten-free and dairy-free family. My husband has celiac, so eating mindfully and eating healthy has been a huge piece for us. It's definitely taken a little hit on our pocketbooks, but is there any mindsets or any tips that you would share with us or have any ideas in this piece?
I think kind of like what we talked about offline, right? Like how we
Yeah,
want to use our money.
yeah.
Like that was one of the things I really had to find my own way of like, because the financial industry, and I love them, I came from them, right? Like, but
Mhm.
our financial advisors and CPAs and things of that sort, like we've kind of grown up thinking like there's this one way to use our money. And I really
Yeah.
want to encourage everybody to go back to like, what do you value, right? Like you and I've
Mhm.
talked about before, like we both value eating healthfully, right?
Yeah.
And that might look like more than maybe the average, right? Like, and here we go back to like comparing ourselves, right? But like that might look more than what the average American spends on food, but that is something that is really important to me. And
Mhm.
so, not judging yourself, like what is it that you value? And if it is food, I like to focus, I don't necessarily like to focus on minimizing our expenses,
Hmm.
and also like there are ways that you can kind of be savvy with, like
Yeah.
there's certain stores that I buy,
Yeah.
the like Trader Joe's is way less expensive than, a different store that I go to. And so
Mhm.
just knowing kind of like where do I want to buy my food and farmers markets and things of that sort. And I think it's just kind of like what is important, what do you value, and then using your money in ways that, that honor that and um yeah, allow for that.
Yeah. And I love that it's definitely I feel like I'm a recovering overthinker about it is trying to change that mindset of limiting ourselves and focusing that. Is that touching on the 3D, 5D piece of money that you also
Probably
practice?
the 5D, right? Like the emotional side of money.
Mhm.
Like when I say the 3D, and this is just a word that I decided to make up because I
I
was like,
love
how do I
it.
explain this to
It's
people,
great. Yeah.
But the 3D of money is like our actual, and money isn't even a real thing, right? Like they've cited like the sources of like 4 to 8% in circulation, right? Like it isn't even a
Yes.
thing anymore. It's just numbers on a screen. But like I kind of use 3D of like, okay, your
Mhm.
taxes when you sit down, or you look at your investment
Yep.
accounts, or your savings account. But the 5D is like emotionally, like how do we feel when we transact and circulate money, right? And
Mhm.
so that's something else that I've changed is like circulating, right? Like it's coming back to me,
Mhm.
I'm just circulating it versus like money comes in, money goes out. Like that's kind of what we're taught, right? Like we have income and expenses versus like money's just constantly circulating all throughout.
Mhm.
And so it's really like the emotions, right? Like why are we limiting ourselves for really good food? Like we feel better when we eat well. At least I do, right? Like
Yeah.
our bodies love it. And I mean one could even, I don't want to say argue, but use the an example, like there are people that spend the amount of money we spend on pharmaceuticals, right? And
Mhm.
so, like, are you taking care of your body? We have one body, it's our only home we will ever
Yep.
have. Like,
Yep.
why aren't we valuing that like at the very top of the list, you know?
Yeah. I agree that it's also a piece there's like a cycle with it with the healthy eating, the healthy mindfulness as we spend in certain pieces in the food area, we have to spend less in some of the medicine or the medicine side of it is kind of what
Yeah.
my family has found. It's been
Yeah.
this trade-off in a
Yep.
powerful positive way. So that's
Yeah.
been really good. I wore to
Yeah.
green today for you as I was picking out my clothing. My eye was drawn toward green. And I was thinking heart chakra, love. And then I thought, well, I guess it's the color of money too.
I love
I just wanted
it.
to share that with you. It's a
I love
funny piece
that.
of it. But yeah, so I'm trying to focus on the heart piece of the green more than
Yeah.
the physical money piece of the green.
But that's really what it is, right? Like when we really like
Mhm,
kind of strip it down, like for a lot of us, why do we hoard our money? Why do we, overspend? There's this place of it coming from like it
mhm.
comes from that love, right? It comes
Yeah,
from either wanting to be connected to someone or, just it is really, I think it is an extension of our hearts, you know?
yeah, definitely. My grandmother was a very spiritual person. She was
Yeah.
from Argentina, and she used to always quote, I think it was from Fiddler on the Roof, but she used to always say, it's like Barbara Streisand. It comes in, or money is like manure. It's meant to be spread around and it comes back to you. So that
Yeah.
was something really fun that I always think of. And my husband and I have been trying more recently to donate and spread it around and feel
Mhm.
that coming back toward us. So I love that mindset and that piece of it. And then also, sorry, I just thought for a minute.
Yeah, you're okay.
what what does it look like for you guys as you guys have become more mindful in wanting to travel and having less materials in your house? What has
Yeah.
that look like in your life?
Well, when you said crunchy mom, I'm like, just because we're crunchy moms doesn't mean that our children, as they get older,
Oh,
love the
yeah.
fact that we're crunchy moms. Like my kid
Interesting.
totally riffs on me a lot about. She calls me I don't know all the terms. You might have to school me on this. Like a crunchy
Huh.
mom, a granola mom, a salad mom. Like I
Oh,
don't know. This is all I'm learning. I would consider
solid.
myself more of a minimalist. My child is definitely not. And so you talk a lot about this,
Mhm.
through, your Instagram of like allowing your children to be who they are. And
Yeah.
sometimes when our children aren't necessarily kind of model who we are, right? Like she probably
Mhm.
has way more clothes than I do. But I don't value having a huge wardrobe. That's just my belief though, and allowing her to have
Mhm.
her own.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, we've pared down. We basically, I don't even know if we sold much. We really just gave away everything that we had in Texas when we moved to Maui.
Wow.
And we're slowly kind of bringing things back. But one thing I do think that it makes you very aware of is how quickly it is to get something and how it's a little bit, I don't want to say harder or difficult, but it takes a little bit more effort to get rid of
Mm.
something. Like, I mean, we had really nice furniture, and you would think that they would be coming out in droves to have it, and no one, I mean, Tempur-Pedic mattresses and like lovely, beautiful
Yeah.
couches. And
Yeah.
it sat in the
Yeah.
storage unit for like almost a year until we just said, you know what, we're
Jeez.
just from an energetic standpoint, we're just going to
Yep.
let it go. Like, nobody's asked for it. Nobody, so we'll just give it away. And
Wow.
so I do that process for us really, at least for my husband, he's like, wow, it's really easy to get something that has changed his spending of like, what do I value? What do I want? And we've always kind of been big on travel and experiences over
Mhm.
things.
Yep.
But I think it's easy to just accumulate, right? Like you've got Amazon, you have grandparents that want to give all the time, like
Yeah.
anytime, right? There's never a shortage of reasons to get something for your child. And so I just had to start saying, like, if one thing is going to come in, like one or two are going out, because it was almost
Mm.
in her playroom was just this explosion is what I would call it,
Yes.
you know?
Yes. Yeah.
And for me, like, and for all of us, right? Like it takes so much to process, like our brains to process. Every time I walked in her playroom, I just was overwhelmed
Mhm.
because there was
Yeah.
just so much stuff.
Yeah.
And so we just started having conversations like, are you ready or willing to let this go, to let another little girl play with this?
Mhm.
And maybe at some point let something else come in, And so it kind of shifted more to like one thing coming in and five things going out kind of thing, because we just
Ooh.
had so much.
Yeah.
But and also not forcing her. Like when she wasn't ready to let go of
Mhm.
certain things, I didn't force it. Because
Okay.
I do think that that can create some, like just how we grew up with like, I can't afford it,
Yeah.
then there are things that our children grow up. It's like my mom made me give away all the things. So,
Yep.
and you can't like prevent everything, but like just being aware of like, okay, what would you like to let go of? Like, we haven't played with this in 6 months. Are you ready to let go? And so I think it's really helped to see like what do we want to spend our money on, and what do we
Mhm.
value, and what do we enjoy. And sometimes it's like you said, when you were talking about your daughter with going to the store, it's like sometimes we just purchase something because it was in the moment. It
Mhm.
wasn't really something we really wanted, and now we have it, right?
Yeah.
So
I like that you touched on not making them give things away, just when looking for when they're ready and when their body feels ready to give it away. That sometimes I have to do like the choice of three, like, okay, we really need to make room. Christmas is coming up, your birthday's coming up. Can you try to choose one of these three? Which one's the least meaningful to you? My
yeah,
kids are definitely on the hoarder side. I don't know if it's all children. I don't understand that feeling of needing to hold on to everything. Even their tiny little artwork pieces that come home from
yeah,
school, it's like, "I need all of these, mom."
yeah.
And
And
oh,
I I think it also helps, like, depending on what age they are, but, like,
mhm,
getting curious, like, what do you love about this? Like, understanding, I think sometimes as parents, we're like, we just want the thing done versus, what is it that what if they're getting a feeling from it, right? Like, maybe it's safety, maybe it reminds them of grandma because she gave it to
mhm.
them. There's and so being curious about
Oh,
that, and
yeah. I love that.
understanding, like, where is that coming from so that we can understand and support them a little bit
Okay.
better.
Yeah, that's really helpful to think about because it has been a hard time to give away things, and maybe it gets older as they get or easier as they get older. I'm kind of hoping for that piece as well as we kind of understand. But yeah, definitely having the compassion for them as well. One piece I wanted to ask you about, I've just started to get into understanding my human design pieces as well. Have you
Yeah.
noticed that it helps you with your kids?
Oh, incredible. Like,
Huh.
if I could like share it with everybody, like
Yeah.
that helped me understand her so much better and
Huh.
have so much more compassion and parent her in a way that was supportive to her versus, I'm 43, like I kind of was brought up with like mom said do it and you do it, right? And so
Mhm.
really like you're talking about, right? Like teaching parents, helping parents, supporting parents really understand their children, and like the way that her energy moves and the way that she makes decisions, and just all of that really helped me parent her so much better and have so much more compassion for her and
Mm.
myself, and just like all three of us together, just all of that. And
Yeah.
also understanding mine, right? Like sometimes we are at an energetic mismatch, right? Like she is
Mm.
what they call in human design like a manifesting generator, and the energy that she has is it doesn't stop, right? And
Mhm.
I like a little bit more of some quiet time and some rest. And I
Mm.
think here we go back to mom guilt. I had some guilt around, oh, well, I don't want to play with her right now because I want to rest. versus like, no, that's what nourishes me. And that because I rest, then I am able to play with her. And so
Hmm.
honoring kind of where we are in our cycles,
Yeah.
and our energy, and yeah, supporting her has been huge.
Okay. That's really interesting. I really want to go look at what my children are right now. I'm very excited to try this out. I looked at myself and I am a generator. I don't know my numbers. I can't remember them, but I think you had said you
Yeah.
were a generator as
Yeah.
well.
Yep.
So
Yep.
kind of interesting. Okay.
and and understanding, like, I mean, as for the generator moms, like, we respond through our sacral. And so I always
Hmm.
tell the story about, like, I was always a no for playing Barbies with her, but I would make
Yes.
myself, because that's what, air quotes for you guys, is a good mom does. But I would literally fall asleep, and it makes so much sense now. It's because I didn't have the energy for it. It wasn't a full sacral yes, right? But if we wanted to surf together or ride
Mm.
bikes
Yeah.
or,
Yep.
paint, all
Hmm.
I had the energy for days, right? And so
Hmm.
really just understanding mom and dad's energy and how we are meant to move through the world, and then also our children, so that we can support ourselves and we can support our children, I think
Okay.
is huge. Yeah.
I love that. Okay, I am definitely gonna go look those up.
Yeah,
I
I
know
would.
I feel like human design is like booming right now for
Yeah.
anybody that doesn't understand what it is. It's you got to check it out. It sounds really cool and I'm starting to learn more. So I'm excited
Yeah.
about that. And then
Yeah.
Erin, I forgot to ask you how can we find you? How do
You
we
can
Yes.
go to my website at Generate a Life Well Lived. I'm like, where can you find me? Generate a Life Well Lived. My podcast is the same, Generate a Life Well Lived, and I also have it on YouTube. And then
Yeah.
um, on Instagram, I'm at the Erin Gray. I'm kind of there sparingly sometimes, but yeah. So
Well, we enjoy you when you're there. It's very
I
fun to
know.
connect with you there. And I love listening to your podcast. My husband, I'm like, go spread that around at work because it's been so amazing for our family. And it's definitely changing the mindset of how
Mm.
we approach money. And yeah, we're definitely recovering hoarders over in our house. So it's been really wonderful. You are almost like at the level of a marriage therapist, Erin. So it's
It's really funny you say that, because when people are like, "What do you do?" And then I tell them, they're like, "So you're like a therapist." I'm like, "Well, I guess." But I mean, really, money is
Oh,
such an
yeah,
emotional thing for people, right?
it
And
is.
so,
Yeah.
and letting it, like, thinking of it like a relationship, being in a relationship, like a loving, nurturing, nourishing relationship, like, how do you want
Mhm.
that relationship to be? Both on you, and as well as money, like a giving and a receiving. What do you want that to feel like? And what do you want that to look like?
Yes, for sure. It's been super helpful, and I know in our house, I have learned that I have to have certain times designated to when we talk about it. I can't just
Yes.
like I'm washing dishes and we're talking about why did you spend on this or something comes up or that's not the time. It's energetically, I have to sit down, talk about it, close the door, and then go binge watch something afterwards to regenerate my energy.
Yeah. And here we go back to human design. What I've really is like, oh my goodness, some of us have that emotional, right? We're defined. And what I've noticed is the people that are emotionally defined and those that
Mm,
aren't, we sometimes, because we have lots of thoughts and feelings around the money, it's like it's almost too intense for our spouse, right? And so being
mm.
really like on the receiving end, because my husband is the one that I do the money, and he's, I think what you're saying is your husband does the money and you guys
Yep.
have a conversation, right?
Yep.
And so having so much compassion for our spouses that don't do the money, because for the person that already has that money story around not enough and all of that, it can be really intense for our spouse that's like, hey, whoa,
Mhm.
wait a second, like, just went and bought groceries, and
Yeah.
so having lots of compassion for our spouses that don't do the money, and are doing the best that they can, and showing up, and you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, bless you on that note, Erin. I'm gonna have him listen to this episode as well. But
So
well, it
Carrie's husband, be really kind and thoughtful and considerate to Carrie,
oh,
please, because she's
he
doing the best that
definitely
she can.
Yes, yes, he definitely is. Yeah, he's been very respectful and mindful, and that's been
Yeah,
helpful. So, yeah, for sure. Well, it's been so much fun chatting with you, Erin. I think I could chat with you about so many different subject areas, parenting, being a mom. It's just, and you have so many areas that you cover in your podcast. It's really kind of fun because you
yeah,
have a lot of different areas. It's been
yeah.
great. Well,
Flavor.
thank
Yeah.
you so much
I
for being
appreciate
on
it.
here.
Yeah.
I
Thanks for
really
having
enjoyed
me.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have a blessed day.
You too.